The rain poured down over the city like a curtain of silver, drenching everything in sight. From his office window on the top floor, Mr. Raymond Collins, a successful millionaire known for his luxury cars and marble mansion, watched the storm with mild annoyance. He hated the rain. It slowed business, delayed meetings, and made everything messy. But then, something outside caught his eye. Near the gate of his mansion, under a broken umbrella, sat someone familiar, his maid, Maria. She was quietly eating from a small lunchbox, the rain splashing around her feet. She didn't seem to care about the cold or the wet ground. She just sat there, smiling faintly, taking careful bites as if that simple meal meant everything. Curious and confused, Raymond frowned. Why would she sit outside in the rain when the kitchen was warm and dry? Was she hiding something, or afraid to be seen eating inside? He had seen employees come and go, but there was something about Maria, her calmness, her silence, her humility that always puzzled him. As he watched her from behind the glass, something inside him stirred. For the first time in a long while, he felt a strange pull to understand the life beyond his wealth, the kind of pain or love that made someone eat in the rain. So, without thinking, he grabbed his coat and stepped out into the storm, unaware that what he was about to discover would change his heart forever. The rain hit his shoulders as Raymond stepped outside, his polished shoes splashing in the puddles. The chill bit through his coat, but he barely noticed. Maria didn't see him at first. She was too focused on her meal, a few pieces of bread and a small container of rice that looked like it had been packed from home. When she finally looked up, her eyes widened in surprise, and she quickly tried to hide her food, as if she'd done something wrong. "Maria," Raymond said, his voice softer than he expected. "Why are you eating out here? You could have stayed inside." She hesitated, her hands trembling slightly. "I didn't want to disturb anyone, sir. I'm almost done." Her voice was polite but distant, the kind of tone that came from years of knowing her place. Raymond noticed her clothes were soaked through, her hands red from the cold. Something about the sight unsettled him. He stood there for a moment, not knowing what to say. He had always thought of himself as a fair boss. He paid well, gave his staff meals, and never asked much about their lives. But now, watching Maria sit there in the rain, something felt wrong. There was more to her story, something she wasn't saying. When she finally stood up and started to walk away, Raymond noticed a small picture fall from her pocket. He bent to pick it up, and as he turned it over, the faded image staring back at him made his heart skip a beat. The photo in Raymond's hand showed a young boy, smiling wide, with the same gentle eyes as Maria. Behind him stood a small house, old and cracked, surrounded by muddy ground. On the back, in faded ink, were the words, "Asterisk for Mama, when I grow up, I'll build you a big house." Raymond's chest tightened. He had never seen Maria with a child. She never spoke about her family, never asked for extra time off, and always arrived early, no matter the weather. When he looked up, Maria had already noticed what he was holding. Her face turned pale, and she stepped forward quickly. "Please, sir," she said, her voice shaking. "It's just an old picture. I didn't mean to drop it." Raymond handed it back gently. "Who is he?" he asked, though something in her eyes told him not to. Maria looked away, clutching the picture close. "He's my son," she whispered after a long pause. "He's not well. I send most of my salary back home for his treatment." The words hit Raymond harder than he expected. Suddenly, the small meal in the rain, the quiet smiles, the long hours, they all made sense. Still, a strange feeling crept over him. Why had she never mentioned this? Was she hiding something deeper? That night, he couldn't sleep. The image of Maria in the rain haunted him. The next morning, he quietly asked his driver to find out where she lived. What he discovered there would soon test everything Raymond thought he knew about kindness, struggle, and true wealth. The following evening, Raymond's car stopped on the narrow, unpaved street that his driver had traced from an old address Maria once used. The rain had returned, heavier this time, turning the ground into pools of brown water. He stepped out, careful not to be seen, and walked toward a small house with flickering lights inside. The roof looked patched with metal sheets, and the walls were cracked, barely holding together. Through the thin window, he saw Maria sitting beside a little boy on a worn mattress. The child coughed weakly, and Maria wiped his forehead with a cloth, whispering softly, her eyes filled with a love so deep it made Raymond's throat tighten. He felt frozen outside that window, guilt and confusion weighing on him. How had he never noticed the exhaustion in her eyes, the quiet strength behind her gentle smile? He had seen her every day, but never really seen her. Inside, Maria opened a lunchbox, the same one she used at the mansion, and carefully divided the food in half, giving the larger portion to her son. She ate what remained, smiling at him even when she looked faint from hunger. Raymond's chest ached. He wanted to help, but something inside told him to wait to understand first. Suddenly, the boy began coughing harder, and Maria rushed to hold him, panic flashing across her face. Raymond moved closer, ready to knock on the door. But before he could, a voice from behind him whispered, "You shouldn't be here, sir." He turned and what he saw made his heart stop. Raymond turned sharply, his heart pounding. Standing behind him in the rain was his own head of security, Daniel, holding an umbrella. His tone was calm but tense. "Sir, you need to leave. This place isn't safe for you." he said, glancing nervously toward Maria's small house. Raymond frowned, confused. What do you mean, not safe? She's my maid, Daniel. That's her home. Daniel hesitated, lowering his voice. That's not all, sir. There's something you don't know. He pulled a folded report from his coat, the paper already damp from the rain. We looked into her background like you asked, but the boy, he's been getting treatment paid for by someone using your company's name. Someone inside has been wiring money every month under your approval. Raymond's eyes widened. That's impossible, he said quietly, snatching the paper. The documents showed multiple transfers, thousands of dollars, signed off by an executive he trusted completely. Why would someone do that? Before Daniel could answer, a loud sound came from the house, a crash, followed by Maria's frightened cry. Without thinking, Raymond ran toward the door, bursting inside. The small room was in chaos. The little boy lay motionless on the bed, and Maria was desperately shaking him, tears streaming down her face. Raymond froze, torn between panic and confusion. But then, from the corner of the dim room, another voice spoke, a man's voice he recognized instantly. You weren't supposed to find this place, Raymond. And as he turned toward the shadowed figure, the truth began to unravel. Raymond's breath caught as the shadow stepped forward, revealing Mr. Harris, his company's chief financial officer, and one of his oldest friends. Harris's usually polished face looked cold and weary in the dim light. I told you to stay out of this, he said quietly. You were never supposed to know. Raymond's voice trembled. You've been using my name, sending money to her. Why? What's going on here? Harris sighed heavily, glancing toward Maria and the sick child. Because she wouldn't take it any other way, he said. She used to work for me years ago, before she came to your house. Her husband was one of our factory workers. He died in an accident on site. The company covered it up to protect our image. The words hit Raymond like thunder. He felt the ground tilt beneath him. You mean our company caused that? Harris nodded, guilt clouding his eyes. I tried to make it right by helping her in secret. She didn't want charity, so I had to do it quietly through your name. She'd never have accepted it otherwise. Raymond turned to Maria, who looked down, tears mixing with the rain that still dripped from her hair. I never wanted trouble, sir, she whispered. I just wanted my son to get better. In that moment, the boy stirred weakly, whispering Mama. Before falling back asleep, Raymond exhaled shakily. The truth had shattered him, but as he looked at Maria's worn face and trembling hands, one thought echoed in his mind. Real wealth wasn't in money or power. It was in compassion. Then Harris said quietly, There's one more thing you should know, Raymond. The accident, it wasn't an accident. Raymond stood frozen, Harris's words echoing through the small room. It wasn't an accident. The truth hung heavy in the air, colder than the rain outside. Harris's eyes dropped. The factory that collapsed cost cuts, ignored warnings. I tried to report it, but the board silenced it. Her husband was one of the victims. I couldn't change the past, but I wanted to help her survive it. Maria's tears fell silently as she held her son close. Raymond felt his chest tighten with guilt and realization. All his wealth, his empire, his polished reputation, none of it had protected people like her. It had cost lives. He took a deep breath, then said softly, No more secrets. Tomorrow, I'll reopen the case. The truth needs to come out. Harris nodded, relief washing over his face. For the first time, Maria looked up, her eyes full of disbelief and gratitude. Thank you, sir, she whispered, her voice trembling. Raymond smiled faintly. Don't thank me. Just promise me you'll let me help your son. This time, honestly. Weeks later, the company publicly acknowledged the tragedy and created a fund for the victims' families. Maria's son received proper medical care, and Raymond visited often, not as her employer, but as a friend. One evening, standing outside the same house where it all began, Raymond watched Maria's son run through the rain, laughing. The storm had finally passed, and for the first time in years, Raymond felt something money could never buy: peace, and the quiet warmth of redemption.